Hello everyone. This video is for the people that will be in charge of the writing events for the district UIL competition. You're going to have your name here on the left side of the duty schedule, and your event is scheduled here. It's going to be very, very simple to do. The writing events are not particularly hard to be in charge of. What you're going to notice is every writing event is going to follow the same process, the same check-in, the same exit. The only thing different is going to be the instructions that are going to be given to the kids. Sometimes they're going to have a test that has a answer sheet, and sometimes the test itself is the answer sheet. You don't need to worry about anything. If you notice here, the 3 people here on top are going to be labeled for the cafeteria. That's where most of our tests, our writing event tests, are going to take place. There are some writing events that are going to be scattered in different room numbers. For example, right here, these 3 are B117, B118, B119. And I'll explain everything in just a little bit. I just want to let you know that most of the tests are going to be in the cafeteria. Some of them are going to be separated out into other rooms, but the test itself is going to be distributed pretty much the same way. So let's look at the duty schedule here in yellow, and this is for the Friday event, but it also rolls into the Saturday events. You see how we have yellow here before the writing events. Most of the, I want to say all the writing events on Saturday are going to be held in the cafeteria. The speaking events are going to take place in the classrooms. But Friday, we do have some writing events in the cafeteria, and then we have some other ones in the classrooms, okay? But again, regardless, it's all going to be started the same way. We're going to start check-in at 4:20 to 4:30. So check-in is just a roster, and your roster is going to look very, very simple. At district, we have rosters that are submitted, or an entry form that's submitted, and we have to keep track of the students that enter to make sure that take in that spot. Now, these are what your rosters are going to look like. Your attendance roster is going to be just like this here. And as the students come in, you're to be checking them off. So here's the thing. In the cafeteria, there's 3 people. You might have some assistants in the cafeteria with you. However way you want to do it, we found here when we did an invitational, we would sit the students down and we would make sure to separate the cafeteria into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade sections. And you can either check the kids as they're entering the cafeteria, or you can sit the kids in their respective sections, have somebody directing the kids, telling them where to go, and then you can be checking attendance as the kids are sitting down. Now, once you're done checking attendance, it's just like a regular school day. Once you're done checking attendance, then you administer the test. You pass out the test to everybody, and I'll give you the instructions on what to do from there. But if you notice, for example, we have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Let's do one. These are going to be in the classrooms. So let's just pretend that we have, well, let me actually use maps, graphs, and charts. So let me go to maps, graphs, and charts. So 6th, 7th, and 8th grade on maps, graphs, and charts. We have some schools here that didn't enter any names. That's okay. If it's blank, don't worry about it. There are some rules to this, so I'll explain the rules in just a bit. We have some schools that submitted all these names. We're not going to be bouncing around with the numbers back and forth. Each number is already designated to a certain student. So as the student walks in, they are supposed to know their contested number already. However, we do need to mark them present. If a student walks in, mark them present and make sure to tell them their contested number. The student is responsible to know their contested number and their school number already. What we can do is we can write the school numbers on a sheet of paper, a butcher paper, and post it somewhere. We can project it. That way it'll help eliminate some questions if the students do not remember their school number. But they are supposed to remember their contestant and the school number. They will need these because these will go on their test, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by that. So their contestant number, their school number, and of course their grade that they'll be testing in. Okay, they got to remember all those three. Now, if you have a substitution form, which looked like this, so let's pretend that we do have someone that's taking attendance, and someone tries to come in and say, hey, you know what, I'm from school number 1, but there are no names for school number 1. We are not allowed to substitute blank spaces. There must be a name in this space in order for them to substitute. So if someone tries to hand you a substitute form that looks like this, and they fill out the documentation, and they're like, oh, we didn't have an original student, but we're going to put a student in there anyway. They are not allowed to sub that student. If it is blank, if this space in your attendance is blank, we cannot allow the substitution. It's going to be denied. However, let's just say here we have Santiago. He didn't show up, and we are going to sub a kid, and we have Tony that's going to come sub in for Santiago. The student needs to hand you, as they're walking in, so for you to take attendance, the student needs to hand you the substitute form. It's going to have everything on there. You just need to make sure that you're going to check the original student name. And of course, it's to make sure it's your contest, the substitute name, and the grade they are going to be subbing in. Okay? And then, of course, the school, you just make sure the information matches. Once you confirm that it matches, and be like, oh, okay, school number 4 is going to sub Santiago with Tony. You're going to say, okay, they checked in. There is a sub. And then here you will write down Tony's name. And that's the documentation that you're going to provide. So the substitution forms are to be turned in with the testing material. That way we can keep track of, okay, Santiago did not show up, or somebody showed up in place of Santiago. There is a sub, and we are writing their name here in this section. Okay? Again, just to reiterate, it's pretty important. If it's blank, we cannot accept substitution forms for blank spaces. If there is a name already and the student has a substitution form, then we will honor that and we will write the kid's name here. I do recommend to have all 3 people in the cafeteria or with assistants, have the 3 people or the assistants go by the grade level and check attendance that way. We only have about a 10-minute window. However, if we open the doors a little bit earlier, that's okay too. The important part is that we start every event on time. Every event, we have to try our best to make sure every event starts and stops on time. The main reason for this is because there's a lot of kids that are cross-entered in other events, and they make plans to go and come as they please, so they can make it in on time to their event. Now, another important rule for speaking events, and this is a big one, once your event starts, and let me zoom in here, once your event starts, let's pretend calculator is all in cafeteria. Once it starts at 8:50, no students are allowed to leave until 15 minutes after the test begins. You'll be surprised, there are some kids that finish pretty quick and they're going to be done and they're going to want to leave. They cannot leave until 15 minutes after the test has officially begun. So for example, here the test starts at 8:50. No student can leave until 9:05. After that, the students, if they finish early, if the student raises their hand and says, I am done, you can collect their test for that respective grade. Please do not mix any tests up. We must keep the test separated by grade level with the attendance sheet and any substitution forms that go with it. Another important piece, within those 15 minutes, when the test starts at 8:50, students are allowed to enter late to the exam. Okay, they are allowed to enter late to the exam. Let's just pretend Tony was doing a speaking event and he was not able to check in. That's okay. As long as he is inside that 15-minute window from 8:50 to 9:05. As no students has left the testing environment, students are allowed to enter. Okay? So in that 15-minute window, no one's left. Tony can come in and you just check him in, make sure he checks in, give him his material, make sure he knows his contestant number and school number, and he's allowed to take the test. But the adjustment for the time is non-existent. It still ends on time. The test time will not be extended. Oh, Tony was here 10 minutes late, so let's add 10 minutes to the end of the test. No, we're not doing that. The test must stop on time. Okay? If Tony only has 20 minutes to take the test instead of 30, then that's all he has. The other important rule, if a student has finished the test and has left the testing site, no students are allowed to enter. So let's pretend that Tony is barely coming in to take the calculator test. If a student already has finished the test and left the testing site, Tony is not permitted to enter and take the test. They cannot do it. If he's in that 15-minute window and no one else, let's just pretend that it's 20 minutes into the test. If no one has left the testing site, Tony can go in and take the test. But the second someone leaves that testing site, Tony cannot take that test. You have to keep track of that very important piece of information. Okay, we have to be consistent on this because we cannot allow one student to come in after someone has left the testing site. We have to be fair across the board on that. So your test, if you're doing speaking events in the cafeteria, I'm sorry, not speaking events, if you're doing writing events in the cafeteria, we're going to have the test organized for you by time and grade level. It'll be easier for you to access and distribute the test. Now let's talk about the test when it's completed. If a student already completes the test and they're leaving before the test ends, so calculators ends at 9:20. If a student leaves at 9:10, of course, we're going to collect the material. We're going to have the student make sure they don't take the test with them. It's vital. They are not allowed to leave with their test or their answer sheet. Both must be turned in, okay? Not all the tests have an answer sheet, so then we're just going to make sure if they have a test, pick it up. If they have an answer sheet, pick it up. They are not allowed to leave with it. At the end, at 9:20, when the event is over, we found it easier here to have the kids remain seated. You make an announcement. At this time, all pencils down. Your test, hold it up in the air. So the students will hold their test booklet. And if they have an answer sheet, they'll have that answer sheet. They'll hold it up also. They'll hold it up in the air. And the test administrators will then go down the row and retrieve their test by grade level. Please don't mix them up. That's super important. We instruct the students, once I've collected your test, you may leave. Don't let them leave until you know for sure you've collected the proper material, that they're not leaving with it. Students cannot leave with the test. Once you have collected all the material for calculator skills, we collected 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Make sure that we compile it. We compile the test material. So this is actually 6th, 7th, and 8th. It has 6th grade here. Make sure we compile the material and have a runner take the material from the cafeteria to the library where they will be graded. All right? You will have approximately 20 to 30 minutes in between the end of one test and the beginning of another test. So you'll have a little bit of time to, you know what, we need to go to the restroom, go quickly, please. return to the station because everything must be started on time. So for science, the check-in starts at 9:45. However, if we already took these calculator tests to the library to get graded, it's okay to open the door at 9:30. That way the check-in process can become faster. This does not mean you start the test earlier. The test will start on time at 9:55. Opening the doors a little bit earlier, if you choose to do so, it'll buy you more time to get organized, to make sure kids are checked in, make sure they have a substitution form to check in, and then at officially 9:45 to 9:50, that's when you really start ranking it up, and you will start reading your prompts. Here are what your prompts are going to look like. So each writing event is going to be separated, and here's the instruction. It tells you start reading the check-in and instructions. So once you get this information, please read over it so that you can know or familiarize yourself with the process and what is to be expected for each individual event. So it gives a quick little process of what to do here. And I even tell you a quick reading prompt to do while you're taking the test. Write your answers down. Now this right here is super important. We are going to tell the kids, write down the words school number and have the kids write their school number. Write down the words contestant number and have the kids write their contestant number. Have the kids write down the words grade level. That's the grade level that they are testing in, and that's where they're going to write that grade level they're testing in. This is super important for them to write it on their test and their answer sheet if they have one. This helps us organize the information once we're grading it in the library. Super important. This must be done for every writing event. This must be done for every writing event. They're not to write their names on the test or answer sheet. They will have a school number, a contestant number, and a grade level that they'll be testing in. Okay? Super, super important. Then, of course, you'll have your little prompt. And again, like I said, it is super important for you to start your test on time. Do not start it any earlier. Try not to start it any time later, because then it starts to be pushing all the other events back. We don't want to push any events back. We want to try to do everything on time. And again, I'm going to reiterate that rule. Once the test starts, do not let anybody out for 15 minutes. No one can leave for the first 15 minutes of the official start time of the test. The only exception to that rule is number sense. Number sense is only a 10-minute test. That being said, no one is allowed to leave in number sense. Once the test starts, no one can leave until the test ends. Once you pick up the material, once you gather the material, no one can leave. Okay? After the test ends, then the kids will be released as a whole, as a group, but no one is allowed to leave during number sense. Only because it is a 10-minute test and it falls under the 15-minute rule. So no one can leave in number sense. Ready writing and all the other ones are pretty much the same thing. Just make sure you familiarize yourself with the prompt. And each event is pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to tell you once we've tested this, and it's a little rocky on the first test because we're familiarizing ourselves with the process of everything. After that, it's like clockwork. It really just takes off on its own. It's the same process for each and every test. Just make sure you do look at the prompts. Make sure you're reading the right thing. Make sure you have the right material that you're going to pass out. It's imperative that you don't mix up the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade material. Make sure you give the right section the proper testing material.